Okay, good evening. Ma'adim L'Simcha, and we're up to the Mishnah on Hey Amid Beis at the bottom. Al Pishnayim Eidim Ashlosh Eidim Yumas Hames. The pasuk says 2 or 3 Eidim Yumas Hames. Imiskayemes Eidis Pishnayim Lama Parla Kosa B'Shloisha. What do you have to go ahead and mention 3? If I had 2 Eidim do the job, certainly 3 do the job. Just like 3 can be made in 2. In other words, 2 people, you have a cut of 3 Eidim. 2 people could go ahead and make that cut into 3, into Eidim Zaymim. How do you know even 100 Eidim come and these 2 can go ahead and testify and be amazing to those 100? Eidim. What's Eidim? Well, it's once you Eidim, again, we spoke this out in the Hakdam at Makos. The Eidim have unbelievable power. So once they're Eidim, that's it. Just like Shnayim don't become Eidim in a rogim, they don't get killed. So too, in other words, I have a cut of 3. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. You say Mono Yusim on Reuven and Shimon, right? But not on Levi. You might think that 2 is enough to do the job, and therefore they should be Eidim Zaymim and Kavash Malon, that Reuven and Shimon are not Eidim Zaymim to go ahead and Mazim Levi as well. You have to go ahead and take care of all of them. Afilu meya tamalay Eidim. The question whether you go ahead and go lahakol. Right? That says the great Rabbi Akiva, right? You don't need a hekesh to tell me that a 3 that 3 is into 2. Like, in other words, Rabbi Shimon says you want to be makel and say that since 2 does the job, I don't need Levi, right? Ella, what's the pasuk counting machmer on the 3rd one, and to go ahead and lasais dina kiyotze be'elu, that he should be punished like the other 2 from kasher zamam, even though we don't need him. So therefore, I don't need a hekesh. If the Torah is going to pass, is going to go ahead and passel a 3rd aid. There's Oive Aveira, Ka'oive Aveira, Alachas Kam V'Kama, She'ishalim Hashem Scheinit, Follows the Mitzvah, Ka'oisei Mitzvah. Rashi brings that, it says that when it comes to going ahead and for the positive, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very, very, we go to 2,000. Look at the Rashi, Alachas Kam V'Kama, Shematzinu Mida Hatayva Meruba Midas Peronius. We find the Mida of Hatava more than Mida Peronius. The Mida Toiv, it says Naisa Chesed La'alofim. It says Naisa Chesed La'alofim, which is 2,000. The Mida Peronius, it says Al Shlishim Al Ribeim. So it's 4. It's 500 times more. 500 times 4 is 2,000. So therefore, if you go ahead and you mitzarif for a mitzvah, Alachas Kam V'Kama. Umashnayim in Ninsechem Hem Karav Apostle Dusim B'Teila. Av Shloisha, right? So this is another limit from the Hekesh for Rabbi Akiva, that if you have let's say 100 Eidim, and one of them turns out to be what? A Karav Apostle. Av Shloisha Nimsechem Em Karav Apostle Eidusim B'Teila. U'minayin afilu meya tamalay me'Eidim. It says a Eidim. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva says it's one kat, no matter how many it is. If one's out, they're all out. I'm Rabbi Yossi. That if you find one of them as a puzzle, that you mavadal eidis, that's dafka b'dinei nefashos. That's dafka by capital punishment, because there it says v'tzilu es eida. We want to be matzal the eida. But b'dinei mominus, if you have 20 eidim and 19 are not related, and one's related to one of them, to skaima eidis b'shar. We don't say it by dinei mominus. That's what Rabbi Yossi Tainas. Rabbi disagrees with Rabbi Yossi. Echadini mominus, echadini nefashos. It doesn't make a difference. If we have one nimsa echem and karva puzzle, then why are you going to puzzle? The emisai, when they're considered what the puzzle is manche hasu b'hem. When do you consider an aid? What makes an aid? Says Rabbi Yossi, when you give hasra. Alaf manche lo hisru. If you don't give hasra, ma yasish ne achem shiro be'echad shehorek nefesh. Why do you see, if 2 brothers see from a window, you can say automatically the person that murdered gets off the hook because they're two. In other words, in order to be an aid, you have to go ahead and give testimony, to give hasra. If you don't give hasra, you're not one of the eidim. Amarava. These Eidim that you say 100, they have to be made Teichidei Dibur. They have to say within 100, have to say Teichidei Dibur. Now, Teichidei Dibur means Shalom Aleichem Oyev Rabbi. So Amalei Rachami Diftu Ravinim Michti Teichidei Dibur Hechidami Kdei Shelish Talmud L'Rav. Shalom Aleichem Oyev Rabbi. How is it possible Meya Tuva Havi? How is it possible for 100 Eidim to testify what in that short span of time? Again, the Havamina is you have this short window, and they would have to all enter that window. Amalei, so Ravina told Rav Acha Medifti, Kol Chad v'Chad b'Toichdei Diba Shel Chaveiro. You know, it doesn't mean that small window of time. Each one begins this Haggadah within that period of time. So let's say the period of time is 5 seconds. So the first aid within 5, second aid within 5 of the first aid, third aid within 5 of the second aid, and so on and so forth. Rabbi Kiva, right? Amalei Rav Papa Labaya El Miata. You're telling me that you're telling me like Rabbi Yossi says Rabbi Yossi that what that says Rabbi Yossi that if the person is even just there, it's going to passel, even if it's not mischaven, even doesn't give the asra, automatically he's an aid. So therefore, anyone who witnesses this will, for all intents and purposes, become an aid. So says the Gemara, according to Rabbi Yossi, that again, you don't have to give asra to be the aid, just be there. Amar Papa Labaya Elamiata, like Rabbi Yossi, that then therefore, Harug Yatzel, the one that's killed, he is as wild as it sounds, he is a karev to himself. So he's an aid. In other words, if Reuven's killing Harry, and Harry sees Reuven killing, Harry, according to Rabbi Yossi, is an aid to his own death. And he's a karev, so he's pasal aedis, so you won't be able to kill Harry. Again, loy Rabbi Yossi, that automatically you're an aid, even without going ahead and announcing yourself by giving asra. So the person that is doing this, the action, the one who's the recipient of the murderee, the one who's getting killed, should go ahead, for all intents and purposes, save the murderer, because he's pasal aedis. Says the Gemara, he never saw him. He killed Harry from behind. Since he killed Harry from behind, Harry never saw him, so Harry's not an aid. Fred the Gemara, nearby Yatzil, person who does an act of znus, should go ahead and say the one who's being, the act of znus being done to him should be saved, should save the manovel. Says Mara, same teretz k'shirav me'acharav, and he never saw him. Hoyreg v'rovei yatzilu. Okay, what about themselves? The one who killed the murderer and the one who does the act of the manovel, who does the act of znus, they themselves are karev etzlatzmai. Like Rabbi Yossi, if anyone's there, he should go ahead and mess up the whole possible edus. So even the one himself who's karev etzlatzmai. So the first kasha was the one they're doing the action to should save. According to this kasha, we're saying that the one himself, the murderer himself, the Raveh himself, should save. So on that ishtik, Abai was quiet. He didn't know what to answer Rav Papa. Kiyasa Rav Papa made Rava. When Rav Papa came to Rava and he presented it that the Hoyreg or the Raveh should save himself. The Amalei, by the Rava tell him, I said Yakum Dover. It says Al Bishnai made him Yakum Dover. Then Mekayim Dover Akasim Medaber. It's speaking that the people who are Mekayim Dover, not the one who the Dover is done to, but the people who are Mekayim it, which means Edus. And the Mela, this would guys would be a good teretz for everything. This would answer. You wouldn't have to come into the teretz that he killed her from behind or he did znooks from behind. Even without that, they're not. You need Mekayim Dover. You need Aiden that are Mekayim the Dover. Rav's teretz would go ahead and answer even not only the second kasha that the Hoyreg and Reveya, but even the Nerag and the Nirva also would answer. You wouldn't have to be behind because again they're Mekayim Dover. Rabbi Yossi, the Medamam Memurim. Now Rabbi Yossi said only Dinei Nefashos, only Dinei Nefashos by Dinei Maminis you could be Mekayim the Edus Bishar. And Rabbi said, no, echadini nefashos, echadini maminis. You would one aid that's a karev would passel, of course, or else ma yasa shnei achim that see from the same window. Hechi aminon. How do you check Adim to know if they wanted to be Adim or not? What do you say to them? Amarav, hachi aminon. This is why we say to the Adim, lemichse asisu Did you come just to see something? Or you came, you looked to go ahead and be an aid. If they say, we came to say this, if they say, but so we just came to see, then the fact that one of them was kroivim, they were not passel. That's what it means in the Mishnah. If two brothers witness something, as long as they don't say that we want to be made, they wouldn't go ahead and passel. Itman, Rabbi Yehuda Mashmo. Halacha Rabbi Yosi. He said halachas like Rabbi Yosi. Only by dine nefashos do we say nimsechem and karu pasol. In addition, if you're not mischavim, right, it would passel the edis. So two dinim. One, that we say it by din, only by dine nefashos, not by dine maminis. And two, even if you're not mischavim to passel, right, you're just being there, you passel. Rav Nachman Amar halacha Rabbi. The halachas like Rabbi, not only by dini nefashis, but also by dini mammon. In addition, that even if you're not miskaven, you need it. If you're not miskaven to passel, you wouldn't passel. You would know you'd have to go ahead and want to testify. Okay, Amid base says the Mishnah. You see, you have Reuven and Shimon from one window. You have Shimon, the Levi and Yehuda from another window, and there is Dan is in the middle. Dan is in the middle. The echad masra boy be'emsa. So Dan is telling Harry, if you kill, you're going to be killed. Good. Now, how many Adim do you have? Do you have two sets of Adim or one set of Adim? Bisman shemiksasan royan elu es elu. If part of one sees part of the other, Hari elu adis achas. It's one adis. So therefore, if you found one to be manu yisem on one, they wouldn't be adim zaymim because he's allowed. In other words, this is one kat of four adim. It's not two. It's one. It's one because as long as one sees each other, one sees another one from the other window, they become mitzaref. They consider one group of four, and not two groups of two. Okay. Vimlav hariyelu adias lefikach. In Nimsa, this is what we had earlier, guys. Lefikach. In Nimsa achas mehen memes. If you find one of the groups to be adim zaymim, hu veheiner rogin vashnir ptura. Now, l'char, why do you have to say sheni's pata? L'char, it's a little shverlich. But again, so if you have two and one, they're not the same group. Memela, if you find two is zaymim, the two that would not find zaymim would kill the guy in the middle, and the zaymim would get killed. So this is the case of we asked on Rav when we began yesterday's share. They said hu ve'hinagin. It's both. This is what he said. You see that what it's possible to have edim zaymim and be killed. Rabbi Yossi amel oilamei neragim achi shnei edav basuvay. It's not enough for the person in the middle done, in our case, to give asra. The Eidim themselves have to give asra. Shneimar, al pishnayim Eidim davar, al pishnayim Eidim davar echad, al pishnayim Eidim, shleitei Sanhedrin, shemas mpiyadim tugmas. So two pshatim, guys. Al pishnayim Eidim, to the two Eidim, davar, or what? Al pishnayim Eidim, period. Al pishnayim Eidim, everything. They have to give the asra. Or a second pshat is davar acher, al pishnayim Eidim, shleitei Sanhedrin, shemas mpiyadim turgimin, that Bezdin has to hear directly. They can't hear what from someone who translates. Amrav Zutra Batuvia Amarav. Minayin le'edis miyuchedes she psula. Guys, what's edis miyuchedes? This is Rashi. Echad roy yisod mechaloin zeh. The echad roy mechalon zeh. One sees from one window and one sees from the other window, but they don't see each other. So how do you know that it's puzzle? So Amrav Zutra Batuvia Amarav. Minayin le'edis miyuchedes. That one sees from one window, edis miyuchedes from the other window. She psula shnamar lo yamus al pi eid echad. Now it says you shouldn't die as a result of one aid. Now my echad, what does it mean eid echad? What does that mean? Ilema eid echad mamish. I don't need the words lo yamus al pi eid echad at all. May reisha shamin and lay. What does it say in the reisha? Al pi shnayim eidim. It says two eidim. So therefore two and not one. So when it says lo yamus al pi eid echad, it can't mean mamish one aid. My echad. You know what echad means? It means two, but they're singularly different. In other words, it's not two, it's two, but it's one plus one as opposed to two. And therefore, it's one here and one there, they're not mitzvah. Tanya Nami Hachi, a brisa that substantiates that Edis Miuchedes is possible. Lomi Loyomas al Pied Echad, you shouldn't die al Pied Echad. Lahavi Shnaim Sharoin Isai, Echad Mechalon Zeh, Echad Roin Mechalon Zeh. Just that's the case of Edis Miuchedes. Vein Roin Zeh Zeh, they don't see each other. Shem Mitzdarfen, they don't combine. Let's say here's a bigger chiddush, guys. One guy's over here, one guy's over here, and one guy's over here, right? Guys, look at me. One guy's over here, one guy's over here. They don't even though they don't see each other. But even if one guy's over here, and then the other guy comes after him, then even though they're in the same window, they're not mitzdaref. Says the Gemara. That appears to be pretty obvious. Amalei Labaya. 1 second. Hashta Uma. Uma echad mechaloin zeh, the echad mechalon zeh, the high koi chazi kuli maisa, the high koi chazi kuli maisa, amroloi mitzdarfe, bizeh achazeh, the high chazi palga the maisa, the high chazi palga the maisa, mi boy, you have a right sayach, fellas. You see, this guy obviously saw him kill. The second guy didn't see him kill. No, you testify the guy's dead. You don't testify he's in the process of dying. You testify you killed him. So now another guy comes along. So he doesn't understand. Madach, if you have one guy from one window, one guy from the window, and they witness a complete murder, we don't say him it's tarif. In one window where one person sees a murder and the other person doesn't, of course not mitzdarif. But what's the chiddush? Says Gemara, a little boilus erva. Oh, you have a case of boilus erva. So he's being boiled in erva. Then Maisa's nus can take place over that period of time, and mainly that's the chiddush. Amarava, if they see done in the middle, then they what? He'll combine them. Amarava, masra shamru, afilim epiatzmai. Right. Says Rava, the masra that we're talking about, is afilu al piatzmai. Now, what does it mean? Masra that al piatzmai. What does that mean? Right. What does that mean? Even if the nidain, the one who is the actions being done against, right? Is the action being done against, he can give asra. And Harry, in other words, Harry can give himself asra. And hisru anidan alatzmai, the person himself is testifying against himself. I think it's a machloikas rishonim how to learn over here, whether it's the person himself doing the action or the person that the action is being done to. Okay, even a shade, a voice gives hasra, that would be enough. Amrav Nachman, Edis Miuchedes, Kisher b'dinei maminis. Edis Miuchedes, 1 8 and 1 8, not 2, 1 8 1 8 will be kosher b'dinei maminis. Tachsiv lo yumas al pi 8 echad b'dinei nefashos hu dein kishera. We learn from lo yumas al pi echad. Again, it says al pi shnayim edim. So yumas al pi echad is b'dinei nefashos hu dein kishera. Al b'dinei maminis kishera. Maskav lo Rab Zutra elamiat. If that's the case, b'dinei nefashos tatzil. B'dinei nefashos, it should go ahead what and save, right? If that's the case, should save. Let's see Rashi. If you're telling me that by dine mominus, Evis Muchedes does work, then by dine nefashas, we should go ahead and use them to save the defendant. We should go ahead and combine the 2 and 2 to be a total of 4. To save the Zaimimim. And Harry. So again, Reuven and Shimon one window, Levi Yehuda another window, Harry in the middle. You make Reuven and Shimon Eidim Zaimim. We're keeping Levi and Yehuda. So if you're telling me that you say by Dine Mominus that it's good, Eidus Muchedes exists, then it should exist by Dine Nefashis. In other words, if you're going to tell me, fellas, if you're going to tell me there's no such thing as Eidus Muchedes Bichlal, it's not Eidus at all, even by Dine Mominis, I clearly understand why Reuven and Shimon will get Eidim Zoimim be killed. Levi Yehuda will kill Harry. That I understand. Why? Because there's no such thing as Eidus Muchedes. But if now you're telling me that there is such a thing that Eidus Muchedes by Dine Mominis, that if 2 people see at 2 different times, it will be acceptable, meaning there is such a musik, such a concept of dine, of Eides Miyuchedes being kosher Edim, then we should use that as a svara to save Shimon Velevi in the case where we're making them into what? Into Edim Zayimim. Right? Look, there's such a thing, musig. Here we have two Edim here. Eides Miyuchedes exist by Mamonis over here also. Let's put them together. Good, there's Zayimim here, but they're one kat, and therefore you should be mazing all of them. Very beautiful kasha. Let's finish the Rashi. Lahasas is oimim. That's shetei edusim betela. Kivin de ba'alma. Since ba'alma mitzarefes by dini maminis, yesh tam kan latziloi. Rachmona ama betzilo eda. So once you have a svara that edis miuchedes by maminis is edis, then it should be edis by dini nefashos. In our case, to save Reuven and Shimon. That's the Gemara's kasha. Okay, a very good kasha. Says the Gemara, Allah metanan hu v'heinei rogim. Why do we say Harry gets killed and Shimon Velevi gets killed? Reuven and Shimon gets killed, excuse me. Says more kasha, and it's a kasha. Kasha. Rabbi Yossi says you don't get killed until the Eidim give Asra. The Eidim have to give Asra. In other words, in our case, Don in the middle giving Asra is not going to work. You need him giving Asra. So Amalei Rav Papa Labaya. Umi Islay Rabbi Yossi Hai Svara. Does Rabbi Yossi hold the Svara that the Eidim have to give Asra? But Tanan Rabbi Yossi Omer, Haslainei Nerag. Someone who goes ahead and hates his friend and kills him, even he'll get killed even though there was no Asra. Because he's Kimuid v'Musra. So you see that you don't need the Eidim to give Asra. So Amalei, Abai says Rav Papa, Ahu Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehudi. That's not Rabbi Yossi. That's Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. Guys, Stam Rabbi Yossi is Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. That is Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda. The Tanya Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda Omer Chaver a Talmud Chacham Ein Sarach Asra. L'fishlei Nitna Asra El have to make Sheikel Amazed. The reason you have to give Asra is because you're not sure know the person knows the halacha. If he's a Talmud Chacham, he knows the halacha. You don't have to give Asra. So the case of the Soine who kills someone will kill him even without Asra is according to Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda. You don't need Asra. But in Achanami, like Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, the Soine would not get killed unless what the Eidim gave Asra. Davar Acher. Al Pishnayim Eidim, we said the last thing of the Mishnah, Davar Acher, that they have to hear, the Bezdin has to hear directly, and they can't go ahead and have a maturgimin going in and translate. Davar Acher Al Pishnayim Eidim, Shleit Tehei Sanhedrin Shemas, Mipiatim Maturgimin. Hani La'isei, there was two Eidim that spoke a foreign language. The Asla Kamei the Rava, they came in front of Rava, Uki Rava Turgmin Beinayu, Rava went ahead and set up a translator. Right, and to understand what they were saying, right? That so how could Rava do it? And for the Gemara, Rava understood what they said. He just couldn't go ahead and speak it, right? Like he understood the Yiddish, but he couldn't speak the Yiddish, right? Rava made the have a yada mada haviyami. He knew what the loyasim was saying, so he didn't need a maturgimin to go ahead and hear from them. That he did hear. What he needed in Turgim was, fellas, to go ahead and Bahude de Haviyada. He didn't know how to speak the language, and that's why he needed it for. Okay, let's finish up to the Mishnah. Amid Aleph, Ilah v'Tuvya craved Rava Have. Ilah v'Tuvya, they were Eidim on a halva, and they were craving to the Oirev, for the cosigner. So to the loiver they were not craving, but to the cosigner they were craving. So Havisova Rapapa Lemeimar, Gabe Loivu Malva Rechikininu. They're not considered rechakim, so they're kashal edis, not craven, not relatives. Amalei Rafuna Brei Yeshua Rapapa, Ilesle Loiva Lav Basa Rava Osla Malva. If the loiva doesn't know what to pay, isn't the malva going to come to what the arev? The mela they will be pasul edis. Why? Because of their eventually it could even come to the arev. Thank you for listening. A good mayid.